after the financial crisis, and I was so naive during the financial crisis that I actually believed that in the throes of the, I was on the phone every night with the heads of the exchanges, government officials, all these important people, talking about how we're going to restructure the system, recapitalize the bank, break it all up, with all the things that are going to, I'm like, this is going to be fantastic. We're finally going to re-rack this thing and we're going to restore order. And they're all telling me how to, and obviously, absolutely none of that happened. And so I quit my job. I couldn't continue to even pretend that there was merit in a public conversation about investment of some kind when, anyway, you get it. So I was like, oh, well, the financial system is corrupt. This just shows how naive and foolish a man I can be. Obviously, you just need to address the political system. The political system is obviously going to be the way to solve the financial system. Anyway, to fast forward through it, by the time I got done 3 years at MSNBC, it was apparent to me that A, the solutions to pretty much all of our problems already exist. B, that pretending that we don't know what the solution is the easiest way to perpetuate the system. At the same time, and it was interesting because the sort of large thoughts that I was used to indulging my ego in as to how the financial legislation, the banking system has to be organized like this, not like that. The energy management system has to be like this, not like that. The healthcare management system has to be like this, not like that. And basically I had a lot of lists of things as to what all of you, and quite honestly, the other 7 billion people need to be doing. And if they just do it, we won't really have a problem. That's what the problem is, right? But I wasn't spending a lot of time thinking about what am I thinking from 1 minute to the next? How am I vibrating from 1 minute to the next? What words am I using from 1 minute to the next? And it was in switching to that meditation which was brought home to me with the idea that it's not so much that we're a function of the outside world and what it's putting into us, but that the outside world around us is a function of our collective vibration internally. That it's our internal rate of vibration that dictates the external reflection, not the external reflection that dictates the internal. For me, that was a revolutionary thought, because that took me from a position of feeling relatively A, powerless, and B, overwhelmed, to feeling remarkably empowered, because how I vibrate is a decision that I get to make all day, every day. I don't get to decide what's on cable news. I don't get to decide how they build the cities. I don't get to decide really much of anything. But I do get to decide how I spend my time, who I spend my time with, the thoughts that I choose to think, and the words that I choose to use. That to me, which was a much smaller thought, if you will, relative to the sort of large thoughts that I was used to indulging my ego in, and realizing that power for change is ultimately derived from the rate of vibration. And that the harmonics of how you vibrate, are you vibrating in fear, are you vibrating in anxiety, are you vibrating in negative energy fields, whatever that may be at the time, or are you vibrating in positive energy fields? And that historically has been viewed as a fairly either abstract or sort of far out concept. But the nice thing about quantum mechanics and string theory is that it's proven out in a very scientific way that the rate of vibration dictates what manifests. So for those of you who are concerned about the fate of the world in the context of this narrative, is to first and foremost make your story a story of solution and love with people that you agree with, bearing in mind that 99% of the people on the earth in every country in the world are fearful, narcissistic, and insane. Trying to convince that population, wherever that population is, to not be that way is like going door to door trying to convince people that the Marines should be building greenhouses. When you find the 1% in your world that vibrate where you either are vibrating or would like to vibrate, spend more time with those people. And that simple act is more profoundly impactful, I think, than anybody will ever really understand, probably at least in our generation, until we get to the other 95% of our consciousness, which is as yet not fully explored. I believe personally that that's a better use of the brief moments and breaths that I get to share on this earth with you and everybody else than working at the oligopoly back east. And I guess the most useful portion of my ranting and raving, I hope, is the awareness that when you feel victimized, when you feel disempowered by the corruption of the system, remind yourself that your greatest power is what you're thinking, who you're with, what words you're using, and how you're spending your time. That you are them. And that they are the person you see when you look at it in the mirror. And that simple self-awareness and meditation on a daily basis, and the awareness that you yourself are a story, that you yourself are a myth for at least one and probably 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 50 or 100 or 1,000 other people, even if you don't know it. You're a myth for your children, you're a myth for your siblings, you're a myth for your parents. You are a story. And that story is the most powerful thing that you actually have to contribute to this world, because it is as those stories are told that the generations around us will decide they want to be like those stories. And the greatest contribution we can do is actually create stories that are in the arc that we want to go in. What I'll leave you with, the other last thing that I'll say, I'm famous for saying the last thing 50 times, so this is really my last thing, is despite the technological capacity basically has empowered us to really fuck things up more than ever before and fix them more quickly than ever before. It's a big knife, and it's easy to look at all the horrible things that it's capable of doing, but every time you see the order of magnitude of the horrors of its capacity, understand that that order of magnitude is mirrored directly and identically in the positive manifestation. Just I say, the paralysis of the frustration with what they are doing, or with what the media is doing, or with what the polluters are doing, or what the healthcare system is doing, is a place where I've spent a lot of I wrote a book called Greedy Bastards, in a rage, right? And it was not a useful use of my time. It was a useful inventory of the misaligned interests, but it was not a useful use of my time. And my one piece of personal advice, if you find yourself drifting in that direction, is relieve yourself of it and change your thoughts, because A, what you're thinking dictates what happens outside of us, and so it's important that you do that. And B, life is short, and we have a lot today to be grateful for, and it is from that posture of gratitude and that harmonic that we then will be in a better position to get more quickly to that location. I hope that this has been a useful use of your time and a coherent presentation.